There is a plant you can put in the ground one single time and harvest food from every autumn for the next 30 years. You never replant it, you never fertilize it, you never water it after the first season. You bury it once, walk away, and it feeds you, your children, and very likely your grandchildren, asking nothing but the digging. It grows 10 feet tall with bright yellow flowers, and beneath the soil it produces pounds and pounds of knobby tubers per plant, more calories per acre than potatoes, storing their energy as a special fibre that lowers blood sugar instead of spiking it. It carried Lewis and Clark through a hungry winter. It fed entire native nations for thousands of years, and the United States government, which pours $20 billion a year into subsidizing corn and soy and wheat, classifies this one as a weed, a noxious invasive to be controlled, because it commits the one unforgivable sin in our food system. It feeds people permanently from a single planting, and a crop that needs to be bought only once is a crop with no business model. This is the sunchoke, also called the Jerusalem artichoke, and it is neither from Jerusalem nor an artichoke. Its real name is Helianthus tuberosus, a North American sunflower, and the story of how a perennial food crop became a weed is the story of an agriculture built not to feed people, but to sell them seed every spring. Welcome to Lost Plant Remedies. The record on this continent runs back thousands of years, long before any European arrived. The native peoples of the eastern woodlands cultivated this plant as a staple, digging the tubers through the cold months when little else was available, leaving enough in the ground to feed them again the following year. When the French explorer Samuel de Champlain reached Cape Cod in 1605, he found the local people growing it, and he wrote that the roots tasted like artichoke. He carried it back to France, where it was named topinambour and spread across Europe within a few decades, becoming a common food well before the potato took hold. And when Meriwether Lewis, of the Lewis and Clark expedition, was camped on the Missouri River in 1805, he recorded in his journal eating the tubers that a native woman had dug and stored, a welcome meal in a lean stretch of the journey. The name Jerusalem has nothing to do with the holy city. It is most likely a corruption of the Italian word girasole, meaning sunflower, mangled by English ears into something familiar. So a plant indigenous nations relied on for millennia, that an explorer carried to Europe as a prize, that fed Lewis and Clark in the wilderness, is today sold in almost no American grocery store and grown in almost no American garden. To understand why, you have to understand what's actually inside the tuber, because it is the key to everything. The sunchoke does not store its energy as starch, the way a potato does. It stores it as a fibre called inulin, and this single fact changes everything about what the plant does to your body. When you eat a potato, the starch breaks down rapidly into glucose and spikes your blood sugar, which is exactly why potatoes are a problem for the tens of millions of Americans who are diabetic or pre-diabetic. When you eat a sunchoke, the inulin does the opposite. Your body cannot digest it into sugar at all. Instead, it travels intact to your large intestine, where it becomes prebiotic food for the beneficial bacteria of your gut, the very bacteria the entire probiotic industry is trying and largely failing to support with capsules. In 2010, a study in the British Journal of Nutrition documented inulin selectively increasing the population of beneficial bifidobacteria in human subjects. So here is a staple crop, as productive as the potato, that feeds your gut and steadies your blood sugar instead of spiking it. It is quite literally a potato that heals instead of harms, and you grow a lifetime supply from a single planting. So why is it not a major American crop? Why is it not in every store and every survival garden? Why does a government that subsidizes corn by the billions classify this one as a weed? The answer cuts to the core of how industrial agriculture actually works, and it is the same patent logic that erases every plant on this channel. Only here it wears the face of the seed itself. Modern industrial agriculture is not built around nutrition or resilience. It is built around the annual sale. Corn, soy and wheat are annual crops. The farmer must buy new seed every spring, buy the fertilizer, buy the herbicide, run the tractors, and at season's end the plant dies, and the entire chain of purchases begins again. That recurring annual sale is the economic engine of the whole system, worth billions to the seed and chemical companies, and reinforced by tens of billions in federal subsidy directed at exactly those annual commodity crops. Now look at the sunchoke through that lens. You plant it once. It returns on its own for decades. It needs no fertilizer because it is vigorous beyond belief. It needs no herbicide because it outcompetes everything around it. It needs no annual seed purchase because every tuber left in the ground becomes next year's plant. From the perspective of an industry built on selling farmers something new every spring, a crop like this is not an asset. It is a threat. It generates almost no recurring revenue for anyone. And because it spreads so aggressively, so determined to live and to feed, it earned the one label that guarantees people fight it instead of plant it. It got called a weed. The native peoples who depended on it understood it as a gift. Industrial agriculture understands it as a problem, precisely because it solves hunger too permanently to be profitable. The rest of the world never fully forgot. In France, it is still topinambour, eaten and prized. Across occupied Europe during the Second World War, when potatoes grew scarce and the fields were stripped, it was the sunchoke that kept many families alive because it grew where nothing else would and could not be wiped out. In the kitchens of much of Europe it never left. Only in the modern American mainstream, drowned out by subsidized corn, did the perennial that fed this continent become a weed. So let me show you how to take it back, and it could not be simpler. The plant above ground in late summer is unmistakable. A tall, rough-stemmed sunflower, often 8 to 10 feet high, topped with clusters of small bright yellow flowers. Below ground, after the first frost knocks the plant back, you dig to find the tubers, knobby beige or rose-coloured lumps that look like a cross between ginger root and a small potato. In spring, you bury a few tubers from a farmer's market or garden supplier, 4 inches deep, a couple of feet apart in any sunny spot, even poor ground, and then you essentially do nothing for the rest of their lives. Water them the first dry season, and after that they are on their own. The first autumn after frost you dig your first harvest, and every autumn after that for as long as you keep the bed, because any tuber you miss becomes next year's plant. That is why you plant once. That is why you plant it in a contained corner where its spreading is a feature, not a frustration, because it will hold that ground for good. In the kitchen, they are wonderfully versatile. Raw and sliced thin, they are crisp, sweet, and nutty, like a water chestnut crossed with a sunflower seed. Roasted with olive oil and salt until the edges caramelize, they turn tender and savoury. They make a silken soup pureed with onion and stock, and they mash like potatoes or slice into a gratin. And now the one honest caution that nobody who romanticizes this plant ever mentions, and you will thank me for it. That same inulin fibre that feeds your gut bacteria so well is, for exactly that reason, vigorously fermented by those bacteria, and in a gut not used to it, that fermentation produces gas, a great deal of gas. This is why the sunchoke has earned in some circles a rather indelicate nickname. The solution is the one our ancestors knew. Start small, eat a modest portion your first few times and let your gut bacteria adjust over a couple of weeks, which they will. Thorough cooking, and especially slow cooking or fermenting the tubers, breaks down some of the inulin and eases the effect. Introduced gently, they settle in completely. And the very property that causes the gas is the property that makes them powerful medicine for your gut. Respect the plant, start small, and it rewards you for 30 years. So consider what was done here. In a time when people are more anxious about the cost of groceries and the security of food than they have been in generations, the agricultural industry does not want you to know there is a perennial staple that outyields the potato and returns free every year. The seed companies do not want you to know there is a crop you buy once and never again. They will not tell you that native nations lived on it for thousands of years. They will not tell you it carried Lewis and Clark through a hungry winter. They will not tell you it fed Europe through a world war. They will not tell you that the only reason it's called a weed is that it feeds people too permanently to be sold every spring. They will not tell you, because there is no profit in a plant that ends hunger from a single planting and cannot be owned. But the plant does not need their permission, and neither do you. It is not a weed. It is the idea that food security can be planted once and harvested for a lifetime, that the knowledge of how belongs to everyone, and that it can pass from one pair of hands to the next, without a corporation selling it back to you every spring. Every person who plants a single sunchoke bed is one more person who can never again be told that feeding themselves requires buying seed every year. If this opened something for you, subscribe to Lost Plant Remedies before this video disappears, because we cover the plants and the forgotten knowledge that an industry built on the annual sale would much rather stayed buried. And if you want me to walk you through planting, harvesting, and cooking the sunchoke so it feeds you for decades, along with 4 other forgotten remedies, grab my free 5-day course, The Lost Ferment, linked in the description below. It costs nothing. The people who lived on this land before us planted once and ate for a lifetime. So can you.